At my son's graduation party, my husband and his mother removed my name from the congratulations banner. When I confronted him, he said, "You didn't really raise him." She added, "You just lived here." I held my son's hand, kissed his forehead, and whispered something that made him walk away from them forever, because it happened on a Saturday in early June here in San Antonio. The heat was thick, like it always is that time of year, and I had sweat dripping down my back before we even got to the venue. I had spent weeks planning my son Daniel's high school graduation party, picking the menu, organizing the photos, renting a hall, coordinating times with family. I was exhausted, but proud. This was supposed to be the payoff, the moment where all the hard years felt worth it. Daniel's not my biological son. He was 6 when I met Marcus, his dad. We dated for about a year, then got married. His mother had left them both. Just vanished. No explanation, no calls, nothing. Marcus was broken back then. I didn't fall in love with him because he was perfect. I fell in love with him because I saw how hard he was trying, how much he loved Daniel. When we moved in together, I took on more than I realized. I thought I was signing up to help, to be a supportive wife, a consistent figure in Daniel's life. But within months, I was the one who packed lunches, stayed up for fevers, signed permission slips, managed school calendars, and drove carpool. Marcus worked late. Always said he was too tired. Loretta, Marcus's mother, she popped in when she felt like it, criticizing my cooking or telling me Daniel wasn't my responsibility. Daniel and I had a bond, not one built on blood, but on showing up. He never called me Mom, and that was okay. I didn't push. I just made sure he had someone there every damn time he needed someone. When he got into UT Austin, I cried like it was my own win. I helped him with his essay. I reminded him about deadlines. I'm the one who booked campus tours, paid for gas, bought his bedding and towels. So when Marcus told me his sister had booked a hall for the graduation party and that he and Loretta were handling decorations, I thought, finally, they're stepping up. I let them take over that part. I stayed busy handling the food, the guest list, the memory wall. I trusted them. Big mistake. I walked into the hall about an hour before the party. The place looked great, I'll admit that. Tables with maroon and silver tablecloths. Daniel's name spelled out in balloons near the entrance. And then I looked up. That's when I saw it. The big banner strung across the back wall, right above the DJ. "Congratulations, Daniel. Love. Dad and Grandma Loretta." I blinked. Stared at it again. Thought maybe it was temporary. Maybe my name would be added later. Or maybe they made a mistake. I walked over to Marcus. "Hey," I said, quiet but firm. "Where's my name?" He looked confused, then shrugged like it was no big deal. "It's just a banner. We wanted to keep it simple." I wasn't stupid. Simple? I said. "You wrote out love, Dad and Grandma Loretta. That's not simple. That's deliberate." Then he said it. Words I will never forget. "You didn't really raise him. You came into his life later. You were more like support." My mouth went dry. My heart sank. And then Loretta, who had been hovering with her plastic cup of sangria, said loud enough for people nearby to hear, "You just lived here. You were more like a roommate." It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I wanted to scream, but Daniel was there, laughing with his friends, taking selfies, so proud. I didn't want to ruin it for him. Not yet. I waited until things calmed down a bit. Then I walked up to him. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. He looked at me, grinned. "Hey, you okay?" I held his hand, kissed him on the forehead like I used to when he was little. And I said it real quiet, just for him. "They don't see me as your mom. They never have. But I chose you. I stayed. I showed up. I loved you every day for 12 years. If you go back to them now, it means none of it mattered." He didn't say a word, just looked at me. Then he turned around and walked straight out the door.
No will be it.
No thank you. Not to his dad.
Not to his grandma.
He left them standing there with their banner. I left too, not long after. The guests looked confused. People whispered, but I didn't care. I'd said my piece. That was the last day I lived in that house. I didn't sleep that night. After Daniel walked out of the party, I left too. I drove back to the house we'd lived in for over a decade and sat in the driveway for a long time. The porch light was on, but I couldn't bring myself to go in. That place wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never really was. Daniel texted me around 11:30 p.m. It was short. I'm staying at Aunt Mel's tonight. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you. That was all I needed. I cried for the first time that day. Not out of sadness, but out of release. He had made his choice. It didn't fix everything, but it proved I wasn't invisible. Not to him. I packed a suitcase that night. Clothes, toiletries, a few important papers. I left the rest. Marcus didn't come home until after 2 a.m. I heard his truck in the driveway. I didn't go down to talk to him. The next morning, I left a note on the kitchen counter. I'll be staying at a friend's for a while. We'll talk when I'm ready. And then I walked out.
Just like that.
What I didn't expect was how fast Marcus and Loretta turned nasty. By Monday, my phone started blowing up. Messages from his side of the family. Loretta telling people I abandoned Daniel on his graduation day. Marcus spinning some story about how I caused a scene and manipulated his son. They made me the villain. That week, Daniel called me like he said he would. He asked if we could meet. We sat in the back booth of a Whataburger and talked for over 2 hours. He told me what happened after I left, the silence, the tension. How Loretta kept asking him to be civil and not embarrass the family. How Marcus tried to guilt-trip him for leaving the party. Then Daniel told me something that made my blood run cold. He said you were always in it for yourself, that you never saw me as a real son, that you wanted credit for something you didn't earn. That's when I knew. Marcus wasn't just trying to erase me from Daniel's graduation. He was trying to rewrite the whole story. And the worst part? He had money. Control. The house was in his name. I had no legal rights to Daniel, no adoption papers, no formal guardianship. Just 12 years of presence, love, and labor. None of it counted on paper. So I started documenting everything. Old photos, emails, texts, receipts for school expenses I paid out of pocket, birthday cards where Daniel wrote, "Thank you for being there when no one else was." Notes from teachers over the years thanking me for being involved. I wasn't planning to go to court, not yet. But I wasn't going to let Marcus erase me. The next blow came 2 weeks later. I went to pick up some things from the house, and my key didn't work. Marcus had changed the locks. When I called him, he said, "You left. You don't live here anymore." Then Loretta got on the line, yes, on speaker, and said, "You should have known your place. Now you can finally go back to whatever life you had before us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She spoke like I'd been some stray dog they let in temporarily. Daniel stayed with his Aunt Mel for the first month of summer. Then he asked if he could move in with me full-time once I got a place. I hadn't even looked yet. I was crashing on a friend's pull-out couch. But I said yes. I found a small 2-bedroom apartment near his future college campus. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I gave him the bigger bedroom. By then, Marcus had cut all financial help. Said if Daniel was choosing to live with me, he'd have to figure it out like an adult. That meant no help with tuition. No cosign loans. Nothing. So, I found a second job. Nights at a diner, weekends at a bookstore. Daniel applied for scholarships, grants, whatever he could. We scraped it together. Marcus didn't call. Not once. Loretta posted on Facebook about ungrateful kids and how blood always tells. But what they didn't know was, I was just getting started. They thought revenge was about yelling or burning bridges. But my kind was different. I was going to take everything they thought they owned. Control, narrative, legacy. I had a plan forming. And it started with the one thing they never expected. Daniel. Daniel moved into the apartment at the end of July. He brought his clothes, his laptop, a few books, and that old photo of us from the 8th grade science fair, where I'm holding his project and he's giving a goofy thumbs up. He asked if he could hang it up in the kitchen. I nodded. That's when I knew this was his home now. He was quiet at first, tired, worn out from the emotional weight of it all. But bit by bit, he started opening up. And that's when the twist came. We were eating takeout one night, both half asleep from long shifts, when he said, "Dad told me something weird before I left." I looked up. "What?" He said, "You only stayed with us because you thought he'd get rich. That you were always watching the long game." I dropped my fork. Marcus wasn't rich. He was comfortable. He ran a plumbing and renovation business with 2 partners. They'd been moderately successful for years, but nothing flashy. So I asked, "What long game?" Daniel sighed. He said you were trying to get a cut of the business, that you were pressuring him to add you to the LLC. That stopped me cold, because he was right. Years ago, maybe 4 or 5, I had asked Marcus about it. Not because I wanted money, but because I was helping manage the books. I'd helped organize their client scheduling system when it was still a mess. I created their online invoicing templates. When I brought it up, just once, he got defensive, said it was between the partners. So, I let it go. But now I saw the picture clearer. Marcus had been rewriting history for years, painting me as the opportunist, not just to his mother, but to Daniel. Slowly, quietly, like poison in a well. And then Daniel dropped the real bomb. "There's something else," he said. "Aunt Mel showed me the will." I froze. "Grandma Loretta's will," he said. "She left everything to Dad. All of it. Her house.
The trust.
Everything." I shrugged. "That makes sense. I'm not family." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but she changed it last year. After you threw that party for her 70th. Remember? The one you paid for?" I remembered. "It cost me $1,000 I didn't have. I thought I was finally being accepted. She used to have me in it," he said. 10 grand in a trust for college. It's gone now. She cut me out. Said she was redirecting family assets to someone who respected her legacy." I sat there, stunned. The woman had erased both of us. I paid for her party. Daniel was her only grandchild, and she took him out of the will like he didn't exist. That's when I decided this wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated. And it was generational. They had tried to erase me. Now, they were going after Daniel too. So I dug deeper. I pulled out the old files I'd kept from Marcus's business. Emails, invoices, banking statements I'd helped organize. And I noticed something odd. Payments from vendors weren't lining up. Money was being moved between business accounts and personal ones, Marcus's personal accounts, in amounts just below the red flag limits. I made copies. Quietly, carefully, because I knew Marcus. He was arrogant, sloppy with people, but always thought he was the smartest guy in the room when it came to money. But not anymore. I took my time. I didn't rush it. Revenge, when done right, needs precision. Marcus and Loretta had spent years slowly cutting me out of the family I built. Out of my own life. But I wasn't going to yell or burn things down in public. I was going to make them feel what I felt, powerless, discarded, unseen. I started by talking to an attorney, a woman named Janet who specialized in small business disputes. I laid out everything. The records I had from Marcus's company, the odd payment patterns, the digital paper trail. I explained how I'd helped organize their financials for years, even though I was never formally recognized. She nodded, took notes, and said something that changed everything. If you contributed intellectual or organizational labor to the business, and there's evidence of financial misconduct, you could make a serious claim, especially if they tried to hide or manipulate funds. So we built a case. Meanwhile, Daniel wrote a letter to Loretta. He kept it simple, told her how he'd always wanted a connection with her, how he hoped one day she'd see him as more than just an extension of Marcus. Then he ended it with this: "You've shown me I was never really your family. So from now on, please don't refer to me as your grandson." She never wrote back. The first hit landed 3 months later. Marcus was served with papers. My lawyer filed a formal claim of unjust enrichment and financial fraud related to the company's records. It wasn't about taking the whole business. It was about exposing how he moved money, avoided taxes, and pushed me out while using my labor to build value. His partners were furious. One of them called me personally, said they had no idea Marcus was moving funds between accounts. Within 2 weeks, he was forced out of the business, pending an audit. That was only the beginning. The second blow came when I contacted the local IRS office.
Quietly.
Anonymously. I provided everything. The payment discrepancies, account movements, inconsistent reporting from the business. They opened a case. I didn't need to know the outcome right away. I just needed him to feel the heat. Loretta tried to retaliate. She called Daniel, left him voicemails accusing him of turning his back on his real family. Said I was poisoning him. He saved the voicemails.
Sent them to me.
We never responded. By Christmas, Marcus had moved into a one-bedroom rental. The business was under investigation. His name was dropped from several long-term contracts after whispers got out about financial issues. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Loretta offered to help him recover, but only if he agreed to legally fight Daniel's scholarship claims, something about residency and dependency status. So Daniel wrote his own letter, this time to UT Austin's financial aid office. Included everything: his residency with me, Marcus's refusal to support him, the sudden removal from Loretta's trust. The university flagged his case for hardship reassessment. 2 months later, he received a revised aid package. Almost everything covered. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't public. But piece by piece, we took back our lives. And the final touch? The day Daniel left for college, we stopped by the house where it all began. The one I'd left behind without warning.
It was on the market now.
For sale by owner. Loretta had moved in with her sister in Houston. Marcus couldn't afford to keep it. We stood on the sidewalk.
Just looked at it. Quiet.
Daniel turned to me and said, "This place was never really home." I nodded.
No.
But this? Us right now? This is. That was the day I stopped feeling erased. They tried to make me invisible, but I made sure they'd never forget me. And they lost the one person they claimed to protect because of their own cruelty. That was the revenge.
Real.
Earned. Unforgettable.